Hi guys, it's me, the unemployed millionaire. Today I'm traveling a little bit in my car down south to from where I live. So I thought I'd share the similarities between myself and Donald Trump. This might seem a bit crazy, but for someone that is completely unknown to compare himself to probably one of the best and well-known people in the world. Now, my story is very similar, not the same, but similar. Donald's career started, as he's told countless interviews. His life started with business, with a loan from his father of a small $1 million. Now, my fortune was given to me by my grandmother, and I inherited roughly the same amount of money, about $1 million at that time. Now, I was about 14 or 15, so I was very young, of course, had no control over this money in any shape or form. But I couldn't control when my grandmother died, and I couldn't control what my grandmother did with her money. So the story starts off a little bit in the similarities of we both got $1 million. Okay, mine was an inheritance, his was a loan. If he had paid his father back, I have no idea. I have never tried to check the story where that $1 million ever ended up or what happened, but that makes no difference. Inheriting a large amount of money at a young age is an extremely difficult thing to cope with. I grew up and was living in Norway at the time, which is not completely correct, but a little bit later in life, a few years after I actually inherited, I was living in Norway. Now, Norway is an extremely open and transparent country. So my hardships literally started by being given $1 million. And it was basically, I suppose to a certain degree, my downfall. It took away an awful lot from me receiving that kind of money at that age. And we all know how old I am, so that meaning that this was in the 80s. And it was a lot of money. It had a huge amount of power, buying power. Now, Norway, getting back to Norway is transparent. So that basically meant, even though I was underage, I had to return taxes. And when I returned my taxes, it was apparent that I was a very wealthy young man because I didn't have any debt, but I inherited this money from my grandmother. So you can imagine having $1 million before you've even got out of high school, college, wherever you might be in the world watching this, and it's public information. It's not, you can't be kept secret. So this would be like ending up on Forbes 400 richest or whatever. Norway does the same with all of the income, wealth of any person, and they still do. You can check anyone in Norway as much as you want. You can find out anything. They have made the information slightly more difficult to get hold of, but newspapers, media, they love spreading this stuff everywhere. So of course, when the yearly taxes were done and everyone has handed in their papers and all the information was there, I was on the richest lists in the area where I was living, and I was also one of the richest in the country at my age, bringing a huge burden and also taking away a huge amount of my young life, and also bringing a lot of bad elements into my life, giving me a lot of uncertainty in my life because of you don't know who your friends are, even at a young age. And this was extremely difficult for me to cope with. I was always in a constant situation that people knew that I had money, but I didn't have the money. I'll make that very clear. This money was looked after. I didn't have any form of control over this money. Just everyone knew I had it. And I felt very often very lonely, and a lot of the time that my life was being monitored and controlled literally by the Norwegian media. It sounds a little crazy, but that's the way I felt. It was my own personal opinion, and it's my own reactions to what I felt growing up. And of course, the older I get, the value that I had grew considerably. And by the time I was in my 20s, I was a multi-millionaire, just from this inheritance by the way that it was looked after and grew. Now this is where the similarities between me and Donald come. Okay, our starts are similar, but at different ages and at different things. But the same as Donald, he has crashed and burned on several occasions. So have I, on multiple occasions. And this was a lot because my freedom to choose and to do was taken away from me because of my inheritance. I wasn't allowed to do anything with it, but everyone thought I could. So in the later part of life, I had a huge problem, which I will explain later on, but for the sake of this video, I basically lost everything I had to a good friend. But I rose against it. I climbed back up. And I have done that on several occasions, but because it was public knowledge, it was a constant battle against finding friends, real friends, people in financial industries. Everyone was after the money. And it's extremely difficult growing up with that kind of money because you get paranoid. You lose a lot of your self-respect and self-control in certain aspects because, of course, you have money. You can do things that other people can't. But you also get a lot of unwanted friends and a lot of unwanted people. Now, the reason I wanted to compare is that I am now 52. I have made huge changes in my life. And in some of my prior videos, I've been talking about not giving up. I've made huge changes in my personal appearance, my personal health. My financial situation is okay. It could be much better. So I've set out a quest I've given myself some goals, some financial goals, some health goals, and this is all about, how to not really give up. And look at Donald. The guy's crashed and burned I don't know how many times. The guy's been shot. Another similarity to myself, that I have not physically been shot, but I have been shot at. So there are similarities in our scripts. He's made it to the top, the coolest job in the world, the President of the United States. I am not trying to be the President of the United States, which would be impossible considering I'm not American. But I have set myself hairy goals. I set my financials, I want them up, but I've also set that I want to be the coolest boss in the world. But for myself, I want to be able to have more freedom, more luxury in the sense of more time with my family. So I need to restructure myself. And I feel that even though I am now 52 and I have been struggling with what happened with me over 25 years ago, I feel that I'm pretty much on a similar kind of rebound as Mr. Trump himself. The guy never gave up. He's been up, he's been down, he's been put down, he's been shot at, he's been shot. And he's still going, remarkable as it may be. And the similar kind of situation for myself. I have been up and down, but I'm not giving up. I think it's the most important thing and the most important lesson I've learned from him, even though whatever I feel about him as a person in politics or anything else, it is outstanding that a person like that is still standing. And when I explore more of my own personal situation, my own happenings, and you will get a little bit more truths and more insight into my life. I know that a lot of you will think the same. Yes, I'm not rich, I'm not as famous and nothing else, but I'm a person that's willing to talk about my failures, to try and help other people overcome theirs, or maybe even prevent failure in future for younger generations of entrepreneurs, artists, whatever you want to do in your own life. It's important to just not give up. Believe in yourself. This is one of the biggest lessons I have learned. And believe me, it's taken me a long time to get there.